Hi guys, my article was Promoting Literacy Embedded Authentic STEM Instruction for Students with Disabilities and Other Struggling Learners. And this article was by Maya Israel, Kathy Maynard, and Pamela Williamson. In this article, they focus specifically on explicit instruction in literacy for STEM, as well as instructional technologies that you can use in a STEM classroom. So to begin, I wanted to just discuss a little bit of background about the need for STEM literacy. So STEM is important for all students, not just students that want to go into a STEM background in college and beyond. So for starters, STEM represents science, technology, engineering, and math, and it's interdisciplinary. It helps students become critical consumers of information, which is important for everyone. Now, that said, students with disabilities consistently underperform in STEM, and this is for a variety of reasons. The first reason is that instruction focuses on abstract concepts, which is difficult to understand, and then it is also described with difficult vocabulary. There is also a rigid interpretation of the scientific method, many times in STEM instruction. Due to these reasons, only about 5% of students with disabilities enter the STEM workforce. So, with STEM education, there has been a shift away from didactic instruction. So, didactic instruction is very lecture based and heavily emphasized on textbooks. And that shift towards authentic learning is centered around inquiry. And while inquiry is amazing in a science classroom and engages the students, it also has a downfall of leading to less explicit instruction. So there's fewer opportunities for the students to explicitly engage in text, which is why that there is a need for literacy embedded within science. So, evidence-based strategies that can promote literacy in STEM learning have a lot of benefits. It helps students who struggle with the language of science because evidence-based strategies promoting literacy will allow students to understand the vocabulary of science a lot better and have a stronger grasp of science. There's also a cyclical relationship between STEM literacy and learning. So, STEM ex- STEM experiences will help facilitate language growth and then vice versa. By improving your language growth, you'll also improve understanding science concepts. And then these evidence-based strategies can be implemented with teaching students with disabilities. There's a link between STEM education and reading instruction. So within STEM education and reading instruction, both utilize processes like predicting, inferring, and questioning. STEM concepts are oftentimes presented in textbooks, so textbooks are a great resource in the STEM classroom. But that said, the reading comprehension of text is often a barrier in STEM learning, which is why explicit teaching is really important in these science classes. So, providing explicit instruction in content literacy will help students integrate primary authentic text like textbooks as a critical component of learning. The teacher can also model and teach reading strategies for the student to use. So these explicit instructions utilize Common Core standard strategies to help build content literacy and construct arguments. There are many teaching practices that the article goes over to help promote literacy embedded authentic STEM learning. So the first strategy is to get to know each of your students and host individual meetings. And this is so the teacher can understand what each student needs, so their strengths and their weaknesses with learning, and then also help cater their teaching practices to each student. And then another teaching practice that promotes literacy in STEM is encouraging students to draw pictures of STEM concepts and make connections. So making connections to everyday life, making a relevance, and then having a depiction of the abstract STEM concept will help students grasp this language better. The article also talks about the use of graphic organizers, a specific one being the acronym KWL, which basically stands for What Do I Know? What Do I Want to Know? And then later, What Have I Learned about this topic? Graphic organizers are a great way for students to organize information and then synthesize all the information that they get from the textbook and other resources. So explicitly teaching and embedding reading strategies into STEM is really important. Another acronym that's talked about is BDA, which stands for before, during, and after. So before reading, students are able to recall what they already know and then pre-teach new vocabulary. They're also able to survey the text, which means that they're examining the main parts of the text, like the titles, the headings, the pictures, to make initial predictions during this preview stage about what the text will be. There's also the strategy to quick write, which has students are asked to focus on the topic for a few minutes and then write down everything that they already know about the topic. D stands for during reading, which basically encourages students to self-monitor their own comprehension, use a lot of resources like text clues and glossaries to understand the vocabulary in science, and then also be able to understand the different text structures that are used throughout textbooks. And then students should be able to paraphrase during this section, so restating the main ideas in their own words. And then the last one is after reading, which is constructing a chart of vocabulary learned, analyzing all the information. There's other strategies like creating a learning log, and then also using graphic organizers during this stage. Now, collaborative reading strategies are also important in STEM. So there's reciprocal teaching method, which is predicting, clarifying, questioning, and comprehending text in groups, as well as interactive reading, where the teacher prepares each student with guides on the text that the student can use to help them work through that text chronologically and use their resources to comprehend the text the best way possible. Now, the article also dives into integrating instructional technologies into STEM. So this section is what I wanted to include on my one-pager, because instructional technologies are super important in STEM. So these technologies include various resources. There are digital resources, so like simulations and video games that the teacher can use to clarify concepts and enhance learning in an engaging way. So to go into these different types of technologies, the main type is simulation. So simulations are digital models of situations that allow learners to manipulate parameters. So in simulations, students are able to observe patterns and trends to form their own conclusions and see real-life representations. So simulations are really great because they can represent processes that cannot be done in the classroom, like abstract concepts. And they also can match to Common Core standards. Now, gizmos are a certain type of simulation, which is basically a fee-based simulation that offers even more opportunities for exploration for the students. I included some examples of simulations that I would like to include in my physics classroom that I have seen in other science classes that I've taken, which include PhET, Physics Classroom, and Explore Learning, which all have amazing resources for different simulations for a variety of physics topics. The next instructional technology that the article goes into is mobile learning applications. So these are basically apps that you can get on your laptop or your phone that provide a wide range of learning experience. So this includes simulations, vocabulary support, literacy connections, and games. And this can be used in individual discussions as well as a whole group instruction with the class. Some examples included in the article are frog dissections, Journey to Exoplanets, Coaster Physics, which is a really cool app that allows students to design and operate their own roller coasters, as well as Vernier Physics, where students capture videos of activities and create graphs of their motion. I also included the Physics Toolbox app, which I have on my own phone that I love, and it basically has various different mobile sensors that you can use to collect data and form your own experiments. So to conclude a little bit about this article, there are many benefits to literacy-supported interdisciplinary STEM instruction. So some of these benefits include a better generalization and more effective communication of students' needs, as well as integrating comprehension and vocabulary strategies to improve their content area outcomes. And then teachers can focus on a few of these strategies to explicitly teach it to their students, because we can't expect students to just know how to do these things and understand literacy without modeling it and teaching students it explicitly. And then it also opens communication up with their teacher and with their peers. So many times STEM and reading are viewed as separate, when in reality they should go hand in hand. So they're not mutually exclusive of each other. Science teachers should integrate content with reading to support all students, and also spend time in the classroom to help students with their reading comprehension, because reading comprehension is incredibly important in a science classroom, especially considering how amazing textbooks and other reading resources are in STEM. And then it will also allow access to not only inquiry, but also explicit instruction in the classroom. And then here are my resources that are used in this video as well as the one page.